I grew up here in the Bay Area. I went to a series of school called Challenger. Went there primarily because my mom taught preschool there. For high school, I went to an all-boys prep school in San Jose called Bellarmine College Preparatory, which was an excellent experience. I had a great time. There was a great emphasis on public service there. And then I went to UC Berkeley for undergrad, where I majored in business and minored in English. I work at Stripe, and Stripe provides economic infrastructure for the internet. Basically, what that means is we help businesses that want to go online and stay online. In our view, less than 5% of the world's commerce historically has been done via the internet, and we think that's going to change dramatically in our lifetime. And as you know, as we learned this year with COVID-19, we saw probably 3 to 5 years of digital acceleration in a couple of weeks. And so we've been very fortunate to benefit from that. But really, our focus is helping the businesses that are on our platform, be the best kind of online business they can be, or whatever kind of business they will be, whether it's online with pure online sales, whether it's online with a partially offline offering, so omnichannel, or whatever it might be. We try and facilitate that. At Stripe, I work on the platform partnerships team. And so what that team does is we work with Stripe's largest customers. So we work with our large platform partners like Shopify and other major platform SaaS providers that essentially offer some sort of service to an end business, whether it's like Shopify that basically allows you to go online and start a business and start selling things. But essentially what a lot of these platforms do is they're reselling Stripe services. Right. And so, and the Stripe service offering in terms of facilitating, economics on the internet, or essentially facilitating payments, that is a service that is then resold by a company like Shopify, in addition to a number of other services that they're providing. I've had the fortune of doing a few different things at Stripe. When I first joined Stripe, I joined the international expansion team. So basically helping Stripe launch in new countries. And so I actually was our lead for the Middle East for a few years, which was a lot of fun. It was a lot of travel, especially between here and the Middle East, but it was a great time. And it's really exciting to go to parts of the world where Stripe isn't up and running yet and talk to entrepreneurs who are really excited at the prospect of working with someone that's really thinking about what businesses will look like and not what they have looked like historically. I also worked on our core financial partnerships team, which works with the large card networks and financial institutions around the world, like the Visas, the American Expresses, the Wells Fargos, and banks in different parts of the world. Well, it's made a huge difference. I mentioned how Stripe really focuses on helping businesses sell on the internet. And what we've seen is this gigantic migration from companies that were purely offline to online, right? And so you maybe had a restaurant down the street or a bodega, like a small grocery store in New York City, that historically had always just been an in-person store, and all of these businesses had to come online. Stripe has been really instrumental to a lot of businesses that have been affected by COVID, and in particular, business that were historically, pure offline businesses, like say the restaurant down the street or the corner store if you live in a big city. A lot of these stores historically never really had to be online because they had so many people that were coming to them. And they had to really change a lot of their business model in terms of being able to accept online orders as well as then get those orders out the door. And one thing that we're known for at Stripe is we basically want to make the process of getting your business online and then conducting business online as simple as possible. And the idea there is that within about an hour or so of you onboarding to whatever platform you're working with, you should be able to start accepting payments and running your business. And that's something that we take really seriously, right? And the reason I share that is because if you take a look at a lot of payment processing historically, a lot of the steps and hurdles you have to jump through in order to accept money are really designed with the bank's requirements in mind. So the bank won't let you do anything until they feel you've checked all the boxes. Whereas at Stripe, we absolutely recognize that there are going to be requirements that you have to fulfill. But just like technology has allowed us to reevaluate our interaction with businesses, we basically take a design-centered approach to onboarding so that it really is that much easier for a restaurant or that corner store to get online and start accepting transactions. The second big bucket of things that I've seen happen as part of this move to COVID is contactless transactions. So, if you take a look at your credit card, or if you take a look at something like Apple Pay or Google Pay, that's actually a classic example of a contactless transaction where you don't have to insert the card or swipe it because there's essentially an NFC reader or whatever technology is underlying that, where you can essentially just tap and that is good enough. So you actually don't have to use your fingers at all. And that makes a really big difference in terms of hygiene. And it's very interesting, actually. And I worked on the team at Stripe that actually interacted directly with the networks when it came to this technology. And one thing we did right when COVID hit was that technology, the contactless technology, actually has certain limits. So, if, for example, in Europe, it's like 30 euro. And once you hit 30 euro, then you have to type in your code, your PIN again. And basically, what we advocated for, and the networks ultimately changed, was to actually increase that limit to something like 60 or 90 euro so that people could think about hygiene when it came to their transactions. And so that's just one small example of some of the work that we at Stripe do to try and make commerce easier, especially during COVID. I think Pakistan has a different impact on all of us, right? Based off of how we grew up, our family that maybe is or isn't there, and how often we went there. I was very blessed and very fortunate, and have been my whole life, that I have a lot of family there, and I grew up going there quite often, like almost every summer. My mom and dad would take us there, and we would spend a few months there, just kind of hanging out in the summer with our cousins and family. And so there's definitely like a very special bond I have with the place because I have so much family there, and I've really enjoyed so much of my time there over the years. Um, and because of that, it definitely is a place that feels like a second home to me. And so, from that perspective, I've always just tried to give back wherever I am. In particular, I've tried to get involved in Pakistan in a couple of ways. The first of which is just, for those that are less fortunate, that are hungry. There are a whole bunch of different avenues for donating there to see what you can do. I have done food distribution in some local areas in Pakistan over the years. But the issue I've probably spent the most amount of time on in Pakistan is flight safety. And I say that because my father passed away in a commercial airline crash in Pakistan a little over 10 years ago. And as part of that, uh, you know, there were a whole bunch of things that, from a regulatory and governance perspective, were not properly looked after. Uh, and the way I think about it is, my father didn't have to pass away. There were 152 people that passed away on the plane that day on July 28th, 2010. And you know, they passed away because of poor governance and people's mistakes. And I think that's fixable. And so for the last many years, I've been working to try and fix that and to advocate for change. Well, I don't know if I've accomplished anything just yet besides just running and running a campaign. I have loved the process though, because it is really cool just to go and get to talk to people and hear their stories and try to understand from them what the things they care about, why they moved to Saratoga, and what are the things that matter to them. So I've actually really enjoyed that part of the process. I don't know if I've accomplished anything, but I do feel like I've learned a lot. And if anything, I think learning is always a form of accomplishment. In terms of, you know, what is one way to get youth more involved? Part of the reason I'm running is because I think we need more youth in government, right? I'm 34, and if I'm elected, I would be the youngest member of the council by a mile, by quite some distance. And I think it's really important that we have fresh perspectives in government. It's me. I'm sure you are probably helping out around the house every now and then, right? And there are things that you know how to do, having grown up here, or maybe just having a more tech forward sense of things that maybe the generation before you, your parents' generation, didn't think about, right? And it's something that's just sort of embedded within you. Uh, and that's kind of my approach here, where I think, even in running this campaign, I'll just give you a small example. I used Squarespace to set up my website, which is a pretty standard offering, right? To get a website up and running. And a lot of the candidates who I've met and come across, like, were floored at how nice the website was. And they're like, did you build it yourself? Did you hire a developer? I just have a bunch of friends. I actually have friends who work at Squarespace and have friends that work at all these different web development companies. And the reason I share that is, to me, it was a no-brainer. Why would even think about hiring a developer when all of the software has been designed so that someone as, simple-minded as me uh, could design a website and be told it's beautiful. But just to take that a step further, I think it's so important for youth to get involved. And The interesting thing is, when you take a look at statistics, not just in Saratoga, not just in the Bay Area, but across the country, the people that most consistently vote are people that are older adults, senior citizens. And as a result of that, all of our government policies, all the things that our elected officials focus on, are focused on supporting older adults and not supporting younger people. Well, I bet you if younger adults aged 18 to 30 showed up in the numbers that senior citizens show up, this country and our leadership and our government would look and feel very, very different. The issues that a lot of young people like me care about today, things like climate change, a responsible fiscal future, all of those things would have a very different level of priority. And I think it's really incumbent upon us to really push that narrative that we have to be more involved, and that is it's not that hard. All you have to do is vote.